Let me ask Susan Calson, the chairman of our Resolutions Committee, Rachel Lasser, the deputy director of the Religious Action Center, to come forward. Jen Kaufman, who is our parliamentarian, who also happens to be the chairman of the Commission on Social Action, is staying up on stage with us. Susan?
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. For more than a century, the resolutions adopted by the Union for Reform Judaism and its predecessor, the UAHC, have shaped the positions not only of our movement, but of the broader North American Jewish community and beyond. Over the decades, we have spoken out loudly and clearly on issues from civil rights and civil liberties to economic justice, from international peace to environmental protections. We have called for fair labor laws, women's rights, the rights of minorities, and religious freedom at home and abroad. We have not only reflected our changing times, but have been at the forefront of those changes, espousing fair treatment of immigrants in the 1920s, calling for an end to the persecution of Soviet Jews in the early 1960s, becoming the first movement to welcome gays and lesbians into our community. And always, we have lifted our voices together in support of a just, meaningful, and lasting peace between Israel and her neighbors. Today, we have a new opportunity to make clear where we stand on issues that affect us as Reformed Jews, as Americans and Canadians, and as people who care deeply about the world in which we live. The resolutions before us to be voted on have been submitted by congregations and by the arms of our movement. These resolutions were sent out to all of our congregations, and you all were asked to submit comments to us about them. Your comments were then reviewed by the Resolutions Committee, which adopted many of the recommendations that were submitted to us. We now offer these resolutions with a positive recommendation to this body that they be passed. And we are going to start with the resolution on the rights of transgender and gender non-conforming people submitted by the Commission on Social Action. We have 3 other resolutions to consider following that. The resolution on paid family and medical leave, also submitted by the Commission on Social Action. The resolution on mandatory immunizations, submitted by the Commission on Social Action. And we have one additional resolution which came in after the process began. It is a resolution on predatory lending. It's being submitted by the Resolutions Committee, and it thus follows a different procedure for voting, which Steve is going to explain as we go through the process.
So the first resolution we'll call up for discussion is the resolution on transgender rights. I'll ask Susan to come up and describe it. Should be the resolution. Part of it should be up on the screen, I would hope. Let's see. Don't you love technology? There we are. Okay, Susan.
Thank you. So every resolution has a preamble, which you're seeing on the screen now, which gives the context and the background and the Jewish context in which we considered this issue. The rights of transgender and non-conforming people came to us as a resolution through the Commission on Social Action process. It affirms our commitment to the full equality, inclusion, and acceptance of all people, of all gender identities and gender expressions. In it, we call for the adoption and implementation of legislation and policies that will prevent discrimination based on gender identity and expression, and we require that individuals be treated equally under the law by the gender by which they identify. In our specific action steps, which are up now, excuse me for looking around, we also commend our reform movement institutions for steps that have already been taken to be inclusive, and we call for further steps for all of our congregations, congregants, clergy, camps, institutions, and affiliates including NIFTY, to make all programs, shared spaces, ritual, educational materials, forms, and documents as inclusive as possible of transgender and non-gender conforming people. And as many of you know, that is already happening throughout our movement. Our tradition teaches that all people are created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of the divine. From this bedrock principle stems our commitment to defend any individual from the discrimination that arises from ignorance, fear, insensitivity, or hatred.
The resolution is officially before this body for consideration. Let me ask you to turn up the House lights, please. We're going to do the same thing we did just before. We have a pro mic, a con mic, mic for point of order. We'll allow 2 minutes for discussion for anybody who wishes to speak. Once again, nobody has to speak, but we want to welcome any and all comments that anybody chooses to make. So the floor is open for anyone who wishes to speak. I don't see anyone at the microphones. Therefore, let me propose we do this. Do I see somebody? Wait a minute, I see somebody waving their hand. No? Yes? Please. Please identify your name and congregation.
Lauren Oback, Congregation Coltic Fund, Parkland, Florida. I'm in total support, but I do have a question. I did see that this would affect the congregants, the camps, but there was nothing said about the preschools. Can you clarify?
I believe if you look at the language, we really call on all of our congregations, and that means all of the programs that are offered through the congregations. We didn't necessarily list every programmatic possibility, but it certainly includes schools, programs throughout the movement.
Anyone else wish to speak? Wait, okay, we have a speaker. Name and congregation, please.
Hi, I'm Eva. I'm from Temple Soleil in Scottsdale. I saw that you mentioned NIFTY, and as a teenager who's super involved in NIFTY, I want to know what specifically you have in mind as to transgender and LGBT rights in NIFTY.
That is a wonderful question, and I'm very glad you're here today. We did not, yes, wonderful. We didn't call out NIFTY because there's anything that NIFTY isn't doing now, but we wanted to highlight it because it is such an important part of our movement, and because this is a time of life when these issues often start to come to the forefront. So really it would be the kinds of recommendations we would make to any part of our movement, which is treating people fairly and with respect and dignity, making sure that all of the facilities are accessible to people, regardless of their gender identification, and in some ways it's then up to NIFTY, to all of you as leaders, to act on that. And if I may use the movement's current favorite term, use audacious hospitality to make sure that everybody in your program feels comfortable and included.
Do you have any other speakers? We have a speaker over here.
Good morning. Tom Temmond from Temple Bethany in Rockville, Maryland. Is it the sense of this resolution that synagogues and schools would maintain separate men's and ladies' rooms for what people are biologically, regardless of how they self-declare? Thank you.
So it is our intention to call attention to the issue and to make sure that restroom facilities are available to people by the gender by which they identify. There are instances in which some institutions and facilities may create gender-neutral restrooms. As long as there is access for everybody, that's what we're calling on. We are not trying to make congregations incur new costs. but we are calling on you to make sure that everybody has access to restroom facilities.
At this point, I think we're ready to proceed to a vote because we have only people at the pro mics. I want to move the proceedings along this morning. So I'm going to follow the same process that we did on the last vote. I'm going to ask all those in favor to say aye, those opposed to say no, those who wish to abstain, abstain. Only voting delegates, please speak. All those in favor of the adoption of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. All those who are opposed, please say no. Anyone who abstains, the resolution is adopted. We're going off. Folks, I think the reaction in this room shows this is what our movement is all about. It makes me very proud of who we are. We're now going to defer on consideration of the remaining resolutions, move on with the program. We will be back to the other resolutions, I expect this morning, but we'll let you know. So with that, thank you.